Donald Trump comparing his and pretty much all of the candidates' tax plans to the ones currently in place. Watch this.
We all have a different tax plan. Some I don't totally agree with. One thing we understand, each one of those tax plans is better than the mess that we have right now.
And joining us right now, Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget President Maya MacGuineas. Maya, great to have you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria. Nice to be with you all.
Thank you so much for that. Let me ask you what your assessment was. I mean, I was reading some of your tweets earlier in terms of what we actually got from the candidates. But before we go into the real detail, how do you assess last night's debate?
Well, overall, I, like others, would say a big congratulations to you and your co-moderators, because it really was like the non-tabloid debate. It was substantive discussion. We got into the issues. It had been over 300 questions that were asked of the candidates. Not one had asked about the debt. And that came up. You asked that question last night. We really focused on issues, and there was a chance to see the differences. There was discussion. There was debate. I woke up and I didn't feel like I had watched a train wreck last night. So I think as voters, we all learned a lot more, and that was a great piece of it.
That's good. No disasters. We like that. So who impressed you in terms of their commitment in terms of debt and deficits and cutting what they need to cut?
So overall, there's still a whole lot more that we are going to have to surface in this whole issue, because what most of the candidates have so far, 8 out of 10 of them, or most of them on the stage last night, have all made a commitment to balance the budget. And yet none of them have put forward a plan that would actually achieve that. We've talked a lot about tax cuts. We've talked a lot about tax reform that needs to happen. But all of those tax plans would lose trillions of dollars. And at the same point, none of the candidates have put out enough specifics yet on the spending side of the budget, what they would cut that would show how they would actually balance the budget and offset the cost of the trillions of dollars they would lose for their tax reform plans. So I know the spending cuts are the hard part, but that's what we need to start hearing from the candidates, a lot more about those specifics.
Well, don't a lot of the candidates' websites actually spell out specifically what they would cut? I think it's very difficult, obviously, to spell out exactly how you're going to save our economic life here in the United States. But isn't it referenced on a lot of the websites? And that's why I think they were saying, hey, go to my website and actually check it out.
I think there are two areas. So I think the most important issue that we need to be talking about responsibly, and that can be hard to do in a primary, is how are we going to fix our entitlement systems? And there are a number of candidates out there who have started that discussion. It's been very responsible, and we've talked about their trade-offs, but we're going to have to think about, are we going to raise the retirement age?
Chris Christie did it right from day one. Chris is, I think, the only one that's really talking about it.
Kasich, too. And Kasich, for sure.
Right.
And Governor Bush has now come out with an entitlement reform plan. So it's interesting, actually. I've noticed the governors have really taken the lead on getting specific on those issues, the knottiest, most important challenges of entitlement reform. On the spending cut side, what you would cut, Cruz, for instance, talked about that last night. He had a plan that would cut $500 billion. But if you think about that, he also has a tax plan that would lose almost $1 trillion if you count the growth from that tax cut plan. And that means he would actually make the overall debt worse, not better. So you're not moving towards balance. You're still making the deficit larger. So even on those websites, there's still a lot more detail.
Yes, Maya, this is going to be a big issue because I've worked with a lot of these tax plans. And it is true on a static basis, you know, they lose revenue. But let's look at Rand Paul's plan that I helped write. That plan actually grows the economy by about 12 or 13% above what it would be in 10 years. And guess what? You actually have more revenue. So this is going to be a big issue, is whether you can count the dynamic growth effects of these plans. And by the way, Rand Paul he has introduced in the United States Senate 3 times a balanced budget, you know, with
it is going to be a huge issue.
You can't cut taxes the way that a lot of these guys want to cut taxes and not lose, and see declines and lose money over a 10-year period. I mean, when you look at all the plans, it's either between anywhere from $2 to $12 trillion that these plans cost because they're cutting taxes so much.
Growth.
But does it bother you that this is the case for a decade, and then they're expecting growth to pick up the ball after 10 years?
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Even if you look at the dynamic scores where you count economic growth, and these are very generous estimates of the growth that you're likely to see, it doesn't count, for instance, the negative effects of ballooning the debt. even if you look at the dynamic estimates, all of the plans, but for Rand Paul's, would lose trillions of dollars in revenues. And at a time when our debt is at record levels, there's nothing wrong with laying out your plan, but you have to lay out the full plan. If you want to cut taxes, how are you going to pay for that? We can't afford to add trillions of dollars to the debt, so you're going to have to cut that much more in spending. And that's a pretty difficult task that we need to start to uncover more of that. I thought we got to those questions last night. We started that discussion. It's a great heads up to the candidates that we're going to talk a lot more about it, both on the tax side, the spending side, and the entitlement reform side.
Yeah, for sure. Maya, great stuff. Thanks so much for your insights. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.